do something that apparently no one else does, which is actually look at everything that happened, everything that occurred. And I'm going to set the stage here. But eventually, hopefully, drastically, some people will see what actually happened. Maybe even some people even involved, because I was involved. I was there in the pitting area with Gustin all day, spending time with them and everyone involved, and actually was shooting a little bit of a video. We got that coming out. I was there. I was behind the scenes. I was everywhere that you needed to be to actually get involved here. And we got some video. I got almost a behind, like I said, a behind the scenes whole deal with the whole Gustin team, the crew there. They're great people, and we're gonna go film part 2 today. You know, the day ain't over. Another car's coming, and obviously there's some thoughts and feelings on the racetrack that people are interested in seeing how they develop. But anyway, we'll wait for a few people to get in here. We just shared it around the Facebooky page. We are here once again on the live, and we do have, you know, the podcast, of course, music and more, really, music and more. If you look up the Chaz on any of your, you know, podcasting outlets, even Apple Music and stuff for the music and stuff that we got going on, you can check that out. We got supporters. We got a list of them. They're actually scrolling on the bottom. We got new shirts, new hats, everything. We got the Circle Chaz, and then YouTube. Apparently, Facebook is what they are, and they're going to hate on the Chaz, and that's just who they are. But that's not who I am. But we're still going to use Facebook because it's a good outlet to use. Let's go ahead and dabble into what happened here. So at this point of the race, we are at 9 to go. Ryan Gustin, Bobby Pierce is up to second, I do believe, at this point. Ryan Gustin was running in the third position behind Shirley and Moyer. Bobby Pierce actually drives around Gustin to get where he is. And at this point, Gustin had fallen back to fifth on the grid because Jackson had got around. But once Pierce got around Gustin, for those who didn't watch it, and you can watch it on Flow, and I believe there's a highlight out. If there's not, here's one for you. But once Pierce kind of showed the outside line in 3 and 4 because Gustin was running it, Pierce kind of went to that next level. Gustin then went to the next level. He figured out 3 and 4, it looked like, following Pierce on the outside groove, and then he found something on the top of 1 and 2, and we're about to see that real quick. Kind of just going to set this up because there is an instance here where you kind of see both the grooves that change and what Gustin found here. So you see Gustin, he goes to the extreme outside. Now you're actually going to see multiple sliders. Pierce right here at this point gets around Moyer. He's kind of having an issue, and we're going to talk about this issue because I think I have figured out kind of what happened because I like Pierce, I like Gustin, I like almost everyone, pretty much everyone in the frame. I've heard some things about Moyer, but that's some other stuff that other drivers have an issue with. Not technically me. But you see Pierce, he's running a little bit higher in 3 and 4. Gustin sees that. Gustin, though, starts running the top of 1 and 2 and getting that true momentum wound up. Now you're going to see Gustin pull a similar move to the incident that's coming here. See, now Gustin sees what Pierce did. He's now doing the same thing in 3 and 4, figuring that outside line out. Now, but Pierce doesn't know that Gustin's up here railing the top in 1 and 2. Right here, here's the slider that Gustin. Now, this is what you would call a slide job. Now, we may come back to this because I think I've noticed the difference between what happened here. So, this, I believe, is the incident coming up. Gustin hits the top side 1 and 2, has the run. Pierce, obviously not up to the same momentum. Bam. So, what did we just see there? Now, what did we just see there? Now, obviously, if Tyler Erb's watching this, Bobby Pierce just fucking straight up destroyed Ryan Gustin. Just run him over and killed him. That's exactly what Tyler Erb would say. And it looks really bad. It does look horribly bad for Bobby Pierce fans or defenders. because it was one of those deals like we saw Gustin the lap before pull a traditional slider where you clear him by 3 or 4 car lengths and give the guy the opportunity to cross over. That was not the case here at all. This was a certain situation. It looked like Pierce kind of knew he was getting beat and threw a last-second move to where he could at least hold Gustin up or take away the line on the top side of 1 and 2 that he had just saw Gustin use to go around him. Now, at the completion of this race, Pierce doesn't go to the outside in 1 and 2, which is weird to me at all. Maybe something was up with the car that he didn't like. Now, there's obviously Gustin getting out. He's pissed off, all that. Everybody is at that point. We'll see if they'll throw a replay up. If not, we'll go back because I have some comparisons, technically. I have some comparisons, some thoughts on this situation that may somewhat explain what happened. And a lot of people, once again, say that Pierce does this often. I see him do moves that are close to what I just saw him do. I see him throw sliders that are across the nose, that clear the nose a lot. This was not. I mean, obviously, there's a mark on the left front of Gustin's car, as you see right here. It's really close. But I think we wouldn't even been to that point if it wasn't for something else. Now, on the left front nose of Gustin's car is actually a red mark from the chassis of Bobby Pierce. So the chassis of Bobby Pierce's car is marked right there on the nose. It's right there on the left front, and that kind of seemed to be what jumbled the car up, smashed it up enough to actually get it to go around. Now, here's what I want everyone to pay attention to. We're going to go back to Gustin throwing the slider, which is here's what you would consider a logistical slide job, and this is the run into 3, car smooth through the track up to the top. Got it cleared. Now, here's kind of what I saw where I'm like, hey, Pierce, even though he may have meant to make it tight, he may have not meant to make it that tight. And that's exactly what I'm going to say. And I'm not trying to say that this is a track issue, but I am somewhat saying that this wasn't premeditated. I think this was a situation like right here. At this point, Pierce knows that Gustin's got him beat. He's got the run into the corner. He just drove around him. This is at Pierce's point for a position on the track. Whatever he's about to do here is all he has left to hold off Ryan Gustin. There's nothing he's going to be able to do after this corner that's going to, if he just goes down here and runs the bottom, he's screwed. So he's got to throw in his seat. He's got to throw this monster slider that in his mind, I believe at this point right here is going to clear Gustin, but not by a lot. It's going to be one of those things where he's going to slide across Gustin by a half. I'm thinking at this point he's thinking he's going to clear him by a half car length, and it's going to hold Gustin up, and maybe he can fend him off with only 5 laps to go. But here's what I see that changed that thought in Bobby Pierce's mind to the situation that occurred in turn 4. So here's what I see. I see that, and then I see, actually it's like a mixture of situations. When you watch this car go in the corner here, pay attention to this car push really bad. He goes in here. Actually, it's almost simultaneously. I want you to pay attention to the car get a push and hit a rut almost simultaneously. So when you pull these slide jobs, you enter really hard on the throttle, but you kind of keep the car straight. But you enter really hard on the throttle so it stays rotated enough to be able to pitch the car. It's almost like you're setting the car twice. You're setting the car once pre-corner, about right where he's at right now on the screen. And then at this point, you want to keep it as straight as possible, but rotated with the throttle mashed down so you shoot across the bottom. And then once you get that initial shot, you'll crank it again about, a car length from the rim of the track. That way, by the time you get to the rim, the car's slowed up enough and you're able to keep the car rotated with the throttle down. Now, what I see in that whole scenario goes out the window, because if you pay attention, right there, it pushes on him in the ruts, and then he hits a rut again. And he pushes again right there. We got two issues for Bobby Pierce in this entire situation. You see the car push there. He has to jump out of it. He has to jump out of it again. He hits another rut. Now, this is something that he should have. I'm not seriously making an excuse here for Bobby Pierce. He's one of the greatest drivers we got out there in dirt racing. But this is something that you have to see that happen here. There's a mistake. There's a mistake there. There's another mistake there that led to that point even on the track for this all to occur. All I'm saying is if that push don't happen, that rut don't hit him, that push don't happen, he clears him by a half car length. And all I'm saying is at this point, that he didn't plan for that, he didn't plan for that, and he didn't plan for that to happen. I'm saying for Bobby Pierce's perspective, because Ryan Gustin did nothing wrong here. Look, at this point, Ryan Gustin has done nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong that Ryan Gustin did in this entire segment, these last few laps. Nothing was done wrong by Ryan Gustin. I'm more so talking about how we got to this point with Pierce, because Pierce is obviously the car that's changing lanes in this entire scenario. Usually the car changing lanes is the one to possibly blame in any kind of wreck. All I'm saying, in any kind of defense for Pierce, because I see him race close a lot. And there's a lot of times where Pierce pulls some moves, I'm like, oh, y'all are just Bobby Pierce haters. But this scenario, it looks really bad if you're not paying attention to any of these other things that I'm talking about. At this point, I'm seeing Bobby Pierce's plan entering right there go to hell there, and then there is the hellacious result that occurs. Because if he's able to actually keep this car rotated and it doesn't push, and that rut doesn't hit the car, and it doesn't push again after that rut, he has another, like I say, half to full car length advantage on the track to where he's clearing Ryan Gustin to the point that that contact doesn't occur. And in racing, I was out there in different kind of cars and things. And what you plan right here down the back straightaway, you got a plan. You have an idea of what you want to do in the next corner. You see what's happening. You actually have a plan, right, off of turn 2 of what you want to do, because he already knew he was getting beat by Gustin. Based on the last lap, he got ran down and slid. So at this point, I'm saying this plan in Pierce's mind right here of what he's about to do there went to shit because of a bunch of different scenarios that occurred. Now, there was some ruts. Everyone knows that there's ruts. So you could say, oh, well, he knew that the car was going to... at this point, hold on. At this point, if you're not seeing it from my perspective, if you're not understanding what I'm saying, you're basically telling me that Bobby Pierce knew that his car was going to hit these ruts and push. He knew that when he drove the car in the corner, that it was going to push, hit the rut at the right spot, to then push the car again, to then push up into the track. I don't think anyone plans for their car or their dirt late model to have to be turning to the left twice in one corner. Because if you pay attention to the left front wheel, car pushes, he's turning to the left there, he rotates it, it hits the rut, he's turning to the left right before the actual hit into Gustin. And that's because of all these things that occurred for Pierce in this corner that led to that. When you're pulling a move like this, and these are the types of moves that make Bobby Pierce fans. Because he's pulling these moves in other scenarios where there ain't all this happening, this pushing, this ruts, all this that's upsetting the car in this scenario. He's pulling these moves, and traditionally he's clearing Gustin by a half car length or a car length or close enough where Gustin has the opportunity to do something about it. But it's one of those in-the-moment close moves that makes people like Bobby Pierce and the other drivers, most of the time, don't have a problem with it because, yeah, it was tight, and, yeah, that's racing. But in this scenario, when you're pulling that Bobby Pierce move, if you go in there and the car pushes a little bit and you touch a rut the wrong way, You lose that half a car length clearance, and you're into the nose of Ryan Gustin, and he's flipping through the air. So that's honestly what I think, what I saw with the situation. Now, my opinion, I mean, like I said, I was hanging out with Gustin all day long yesterday. I kind of think he's overlooked. You know, everybody talks about Ricky Horton Jr. and everybody talks about Kyle Strickler, these modified guys in the late model racing. And for some reason, everybody's forgetting about Ryan Gustin, who is just as dominant, if not more dominant, than both of those drivers. I mean, Kyle Strickler did what he did in UMP, but UMP, obviously, based on the USMTS match race, just doesn't hold a candle to USMTS. USMTS modified racing is the world of outlaws of those style modifieds. I don't care what anyone says. But I hung out with them. I don't think, and I was in the pits with him, and Bobby Pierce was 2 cars over, and I have a great relationship with Bobby Pierce as well. You know, and there's this guy, Fritz Kratzer, with this pearly white teeth, you know, that's in the middle. I'm just messing with him. He's a good guy, though, from Kansas. Drives that 55 car. We were hanging out all day long, and then this occurs. And in this situation, Ryan Gustin did nothing wrong. All race long, I didn't think he did anything wrong. And I think Bobby Pierce's intentions were not wrong at that point. But I think all these different variables that happened to get to that point right there were not planned. The premeditation here by Bobby Pierce was not to do what happened. But due to all the variables, the execution of what he may have been thinking, which, I mean, I don't think anyone could say may have been thinking. I'm pretty sure right here he meant to pull a big slide job and clear him by a half a car length to make it really close and hold Gustin up. But that premeditation, that plan, went to hell due to variables with the car pushing a little bit. There's a rut right there, another rut right there, and another hit right there. So, I mean, that is what I'm seeing. I mean, I don't want to say racing incident. I do. Actually, that's what I want to say now at this point. Initially, last night, I was like, damn, Pierce, I mean, what the hell? But after more evaluation, I kind of look at it as a racing incident due to Bobby Pierce being a on the edge, throwing sliders, half car length clearance driver. That's how he drives. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you have this bobble, this push, this rut, that's what leads to right there. So there's a lot of things that led to this. And I don't think Gustin's a bad guy at all. I don't think Pierce is a bad guy at the end of the day, technically. I like his driving style. It's that to me, it's like a sprint car driving style. You know, it's very on the edge, closing rates, willing to take risks. And most of the time, it's close and passing. But I think a lot of things happened in this situation to get it to that point that wasn't necessarily, a vicious act, as most people are saying it is. Oh, Pierce, that's how he drives, all blah, blah, blah. I don't think that's what I just saw. I think I saw Pierce going to pull a big move, and due to situations on the track with ruts and conditions, even his car a little bit maybe acted different in that spot on the track. When you're pulling a half car length slider that he knows he's about to pull, everything that could have went wrong for Bobby Pierce and apparently Gustin went wrong for Bobby Pierce in the execution of that move. Whether that's the car handling illy in that moment on the track, whether it's the ruts that caused that car to act illy on the track. But once you're in that instance, we'll go back to it. Once you are Pierce and you're right here, you're fucked. I mean, there's nothing. Once Pierce gets to, let me see if I can pause it. Once Pierce goes in here and he gets to this point on the track, I'm going to pause it. In his mind, it's going in there, right there. I mean, really, hold on. It's actually right before that. I mean, the initial push is really what started the plan going to shit. But once that car starts going up the hill, and really right here when it pushes initially and it goes up the hill, right there he's fucked. And he's kind of, right here he's kind of fucked, and you see him turning to the left. He's trying to crank the car. At this point, the front wheels are turned to the left. Now, when I push play here, what you're going to see, he has almost no shot. Because that car pushed and it just slammed that initial rut, the car's going up to the top right now. When you carry that much speed and you're on the throttle, this car at this moment right now is going to the top of the track. Now, at this point in this moment, shit's already going wrong for Pierce. At this point, Pierce is trying to figure out a way to get as much speed to the top so he doesn't destroy Gustin. Now, this is all happening in split second. I'm able to sit here, pause it, push play, all this bullshit. But at this moment on the track, that car is going to the top. It already lost its momentum needed. This is after the first variable played its factor. And at this point, he's trying to just, and like I said, initial reaction, in my mind, if that's just happening, I'm kind of trying to do everything I can to get up there, but you'll see when I push play here, it hits another rut and pushes a little bit. Right there, hits the other rut, pushes again. I mean, everything that could have went wrong for Pierce in this situation went wrong, and the victim was the Reaper. Now, I don't know if this needs to turn into a Bigfoot versus Gravedigger, smooth operator versus the Reaper situation. I don't know. But I'm just saying, after watching this over and over and over again, trying to figure out what happened, because I like Pierce and I like Gustin. I like Pierce for that edgy driving style that isn't necessarily dirty, because I see him pull a lot of stuff that other guys just can't. I see him pull moves like that get clear. I think if those two bumps that happen and that push in those two instances don't happen, he clears Gustin by a half car length, and it's a really tight move, but he cleared the dude, and the guy's got to figure out what to do with this now. That's exciting racing. I'm a fan of that. That's why I like Bobby Pierce, because he pulls those types of moves that are clean, but they're on the edge of dirty. They're on the edge of disaster. In this situation, though, the variables that played a factor ended up in the disaster category, when most of the time I think Pierce is on the clean end of these deals. It's very close to disaster. Some may call it a douchebag move when you pull a slider in a late model that clears by a half car length. But hey, if you clear the guy by a half car length, okay, that is a dirty slider. What just happened there? I'm just saying there's a lot of variables that got to that point of being dirty. If he's a half car length ahead in that instance, then it's clean, technically. That's what I would say. It's a clean slider. It's really close, yeah. But he clears him by half car lengths and gives the guy opportunity to deal with what just happened. That's clean. So I'm just saying, I think this is going to be interesting. We'll see what happens tonight. The race is on flow. Fortunately or unfortunately for whoever is on the whole this team, that team broadcast war. I don't understand it, but I kind of try to work with everybody. I'm the Chaz. Hey, you put good stuff out, good stuff occurs. That's just and that happens for everybody. That's what happens for everybody. But here's the instance again. I think in this, and we're about to get out of here, there's a lot of variables that led to this instance on the racetrack with Bobby Pierce. I think, like I paused it earlier before entering the corner with Gustin having the run, he had something in his mind that would have worked without these variables of this rut, this push, this other rut right there, and push up. At that point, things are just going to shit in this edge of disaster move that Pierce pulls all the time. When you have a rut and like I said, all these variables happen, disaster can occur. And that's what happened right there. Unfortunate for Gustin. I believe they're pulling out a backup car. Noah on the crew over there. Kendra, was a little upset. Noah's extremely mad. There's a lot of people mad when that thing happens. And Pierce, like I said, I think he pulls those moves a lot. And I think that's why he has a fan base, because most of the time he's pulling those moves and clearing them by a half car length. And it's really tight, exciting racing. And I think that's what was in his mind down the back straightaway, that once that car went in the corner, pushed, rut, push, that move all of a sudden went from a possible clean, close slider that's great and action-packed to into the nose and flipping a car on the racetrack. That's what I think.